Welcome to the channel. Please like and subscribe and select the notification to be notified in the next broadcast video. The video I'm talking today is an equipment that I'm no longer use, and I'm using a new system. The equipment I'm no longer use and I've since retired is a Lenovo H535 with a AMD processor, and it comes with a it's a quad core. I mean, it's actually a quad core processor, old quad core processor. It was good at the time I was of use. The time I purchased it from Micro Center, it came with a 6 gigs of RAM, a 1 terabyte hard drive with 5400 RPM, and an onboard AMD Radeon graphics driver. It did the job well with my old point and shoot camera, and I was doing the videos pretty well on it. I mean, it has no problem. I mean, even though it got some hiccups here and there, but it did the job. When I purchased the Sony A6300, that's when I ran into some problems with it. It did the pictures fine, both JPEG and RAW, but it could not process the 4K video. It could not process the high-end HD video. I only get able to set it at the lowest end of the HD quality of this camera, so I could able to edit and process it to YouTube. And it did cause some crashes because the system was struggling with, believe it or not, with the video. I mean, it actually struggled with the video. I mean, because every time I do it from Premiere, I do it from After Effects, when I render it, it takes about 30 minutes and sometimes an hour. If it takes an hour, close to an hour, I pray that the system didn't crash, and sometimes it does crash. I mean, it does crash. It crashed on, no matter how many times I try. So what's the person I did? I went back to Micro Center. I purchased a new high-end graphics card. It's a NVIDIA 2 gig graphics card. Didn't have the 3D capability, which I should have checked at the time, but it was available at the time I purchased, and that kind of helped a little bit with the Adobe Premiere and After Effects, because I had to configure it to utilize both CPU and GPU of the hardware, both motherboard and graphics card, so it could able to speed up the production of it. It helps a little bit, but it didn't resolve all the problems. The next thing I upgraded was from 6 gigs to 16 gigs of RAM to speed up the process and make sure the process is speed up. But that kind of solved a little bit, but not the whole thing. The last part I did was replacing the hard drive from a 1 terabyte to a 2 terabyte 72 RPM, which I should have purchased a solid state drive. That would have made a big difference, but I made a poor choice on that. But I should have purchased a solid state drive, which should have remedied that problem. It did help, but no matter how I did it, the problem was the motherboard itself on that machine. And the problem is, no matter how many hardware I add on it, the CPU will still be running 100% when I'm rendering the videos. And sometimes when I do some photo editing, it has no problem with it, but the videos was the problem. The other problem I had with this machine was the wireless connection. The wireless connection on this machine was sporadic. I mean, there was days it has no problem, and there was days it would just totally shut down and would not do absolutely nothing. And I have to do is always try to reset it by going to settings. I had to go to control panels, to device manager, and sometimes had to go into the network adapters of the device manager, disable it, re-enable it, and sometimes it kicks back in. And oftentimes that works, but there is a time it doesn't work. Then I had to delete it, shut the machine down, power back up, and the system comes back on, and then I get that reestablish connection again. But if that fails, and it does sometimes happens, it's a tooth and nail, and it was very annoying. The last straw was it was down for a week. I couldn't get no internet connection, zero. So I went back to Micro Center, purchased myself an external USB wireless adapter. Once I plug it into the USB port to utilize it, the wireless adapter came back on. I mean, it did. It came back to life. And it didn't make no sense to me. Why? So I decided to say, well, as long as this adapter is still there, the onboard wireless adapter will keep on going on. It will keep on be alive, you know, it will still be activated. It was the weirdest thing. So it was the time for me to replace this machine. And what machine did I replace? I replaced this machine with a Dell XPS 8940. The time of purchase is only have this configuration because I was planning to buy a much more higher configuration, but that brand batch was sold out. And the people from Microsoft at the time, they said they order more, but they don't know when that batch should be coming in. So at the meantime, I was stuck with this batch, you know, and this batch configuration of it was, it had the standard i7 processor. It has 8 gigs of, actually it has 16 gigs of RAM, because the factory came with 8 gigs, so they added another 8 gigs to make it 16. They added a NVIDIA 4 gigs graphics card, and they updated the hard drive capacity to 512 M2 flash drive, which is fine, you know, like. And I purchased this for about $1,000, you know, about almost $1,100. Yeah, it's close to it, but it was a fine, you know, purchase. And it was available at the time, and I knew what I wanted, and I know what configuration I have, but I knew there was some configuration that is going to cause some issues in the near future. So I'm going to show you the machine as of right now. This is the machine right here. This is the Dell XPS, as you can see right here. And now this is my first purchase of buying a Dell desktop. I bought Dell laptops in the past, but this is my first desktop. And everybody want to be curious what's inside of this. So let's take a look, because I deal with Dell hardware in the past. I deal with Hewlett Packard. I deal with a whole bunch of machines, and some of the machines are no longer in production because the companies has been defunct or being acquisitioned by another brand. I'm not going to go through no history on that. So let's look at this. As you can see the M2 flash drive. And one thing you guys are going to be curious about this. Yes, this is a standard CPU cooling fan. It's not the high-end fan. It's just a standard CPU fan. It's good with i3 or i5. That'd be fine. For i7, it's okay. But if you try to play games on this machine, you might need to upgrade that fan to a much more higher cooling fan, because if you buy from Dell, unless you're going to buy a gaming machine, then you need to buy Alienware and get the high-end cooling fan to get it. But this type of machine is good with video editing, some games, but mostly time is for creativity, for production, for your like your schoolwork or any other thing. But it could handle some games. If you play games with this machine with this kind of configuration, with the 16 gigs, with the 4 gigs graphics card, and the M2 flash drive, and the standard standard cooling fan for the i7, it could work on some 3D games, but if the game starts slowing down, and what I'm saying is when it starts slowing down, it is not the configuration, it is the CPU fan that you might need to upgrade first. Okay, when you're playing games with this type of system from Dell, just be knowledgeable that you might deal with a problem with this fan, because you might have a graphics card that can handle 3D functionality, or you might need to buy a much more higher capacity on it, because all this configuration is upgradable. Because you can put a high-end graphics card much more up to 6 to 12 to 16 gigs of RAM on a NVIDIA graphics card, which would be pretty expensive. And the memory on this one, it could be upgraded to 128. It will be pretty expensive. You know, you're gonna spend up to like about, you know, you can spend over to up to 800 to 1,000. It depends on what type of DDR RAMs you're going to purchase, and what type of DDR RAMs on the graphics card as well too. You know, sky's the limit with this machine, because this machine is upgradable to handle a lot. The only thing you might need to upgrade is probably first is the fan, because you need a much more higher capacity cooling fan for your games. Because believe it or not, if we're going to play games with this machine, it's going to throttle because of the CPU fan. And then, you know, you're going to call Dell and complain about it, or you call Microsoft and complain about it. The only thing they're gonna say, well, you purchased the way it is, or some from Dell gonna say you tried this and this. But the first thing is going to be the problem is the cooling fan. It's the CPU cooling fan, and you might need to purchase a higher end cooling fan to cool the processor, because there's so much the processor can handle. If the processor reaches to a certain thermal threshold, it's going to throttle back to save itself, or throttle back to save the whole system from, you know, avoiding being, you know, catastrophic meltdown. Believe me, it can happen, because that's what some guys who try to overclock it, and that's what you can put some lot of risk to the machine, try to get that high end speed on it, but eventually it will lock up. Because I do experience when you overclock machines, it does lock up. I mean, guys does that in the past. I used to do it in the past. Try to, you know, do things, and then it locks up. I mean, like when you try to overclock up these type of machines, a type of CPU, you're at risk of locking up the machine. You risk of having a CPU lockup, and sometimes the CPU start breaking down, and if you're constantly doing it, then soon or later the CPU will start to fail, and then you had to replace the CPU. Unless you know, if you go to Dell and then Dell want to do a little check on it, you know, like, and they want to do a diagnostic and they find out the CPU failed, they want to get a report on it, and if you find out you overclock it, yeah, you kind of avoid a warranty. Yeah, it's pretty much what it is. But as you can see, this thing could store up to 4 drives. The M2 flash drive, two 3.5 drives, and 1 2.5 drives. Yeah, so it could store a lot. So this machine is fine. What it does, it can do all the stuff that you want. I mean, sky's the limit, because this system is upgradable. This is a fine machine. You could upgrade whatever you want, because you got the capacity to put any type of graphics card on it. It could handle it. It could have the capacity to max out the memory on it. It can handle it, and you could put any type of flash drive on it, because it has the bus speed to handle it. And this is the thing that will go forward, because if you have an M2 flash drive, you will have no problem having the speed and the capacity to run your application and everything. But my advice is, if you have an M2 flash drive, get a second storage and keep your data onto a second storage. If you worry about your data being compromised or being lost, you could have it up either into the cloud or have a personal storage connect to the machine and have your data stored there. Never ever keep your most important stuff on your local drive. People have a habit of doing that. What it does is kind of slow the machine down. If you're playing games, it will slow the machine down. Yes, it will slow the machine down. If you have any data on this, your documents and everything, save it to a second storage. And keep it to a second storage, then the machine will run faster. Because if you keep data on your local drive, on your main drive, and you're playing games, you're gonna have some latency on it, because you don't want to save nothing on your local drive. You want the fastest speed possible. That's why I keep most of my data on the second drive, because if something happens, it happens. And as long as your most important document is not on your local drive, you don't have nothing to worry about. For those who have the new machine, they have to sign up with Microsoft OneDrive. Your data is on the cloud. So if your machine crash, don't worry. You got 5 gig of storage. You could bring it, set up new machines, use the same account. Easy peasy. Your data will return back, no problem. Unless you want to pay more money for more storage, that's be my guess. But bottom line is, this is a good machine. I got it from Micro Center. Got a good deal on it. I can't complain about it. It does the job that I wanted, and I'm planning to upgrade it and add more functionality to it. Even though I might avoid the warranty issue on this one, unless I had to buy it through Dell or from Micro Center to update it. It's a good thing. So like, if you want to buy from Dell, buy from Dell. You want to go to Micro Center or Best Buy, anything, get this, because I'll probably end up is to buy the extended warranty on this, for 2 more years for this product, and just in case the motherboard goes bad or anything goes bad on it, and then that's it. But otherwise, I probably had to think about it and then go from there. This is my video for the equipment I use, and hopefully I will improve better on this, and hopefully I can keep on making more videos. And wish me luck, and I'll see you next time.